This happened way back in October of 2006. At that time, I was just a 19-year-old kid, always on the lookout for adventure. One Friday night, after wrapping up my shift at McDonald's, I met up with some friends who suggested we check out this haunted location called White's Bridge. My one buddy Brandon said he had recently learned about it and began telling us the legends associated with the 100-year-old wood-covered bridge. Never one to turn down a spooky experience, we all piled into my green Ford Taurus and headed out on our journey. Brandon gave directions, guiding me off the main road, and within minutes, we were on the dirt back roads, surrounded by woods and cornfields. Our only point of reference was a blinking cell tower off in the distance. We could tell we were getting further from the city, as our cell phones began slowly losing service. As we rode deeper and deeper into what legitimately felt like the absolute middle of nowhere, Brandon repeated the legend associated with the bridge. Back in the early 1900s, a local farmer discovered that his beloved wife had been cheating on him, and in a fit of rage, he killed her and her lover after discovering them in the act. After committing the cold-blooded murder, the farmer left his home and wandered the dirt roads in a daze. He eventually came upon White's Bridge, where the realization of what he had done finally began to sink in, and deciding he would rather die than face the consequences of his actions, he hoisted a rope up and over one of the bridge's rafters and hung himself. As far as I can tell now, the story is complete fiction, but we totally believed it at the time. After a long and bumpy ride, Brandon instructed me to turn right on an off-road I wouldn't have even noticed was there had he not pointed it out. I took the turn, and there before us was White's Bridge. It looked like something straight out of a horror film, an old, wood-covered bridge, aged by time, sitting alone above a river deep in the middle of nowhere. We parked the car on the side of the road and got out to explore. Immediately catching our eyes was a scarecrow lying abandoned at the entrance to the bridge. My friend Mike, who was known as somewhat of a risk-taker, and a stupid one at that, picked up the scarecrow and lit it on fire. The hay body burst up into a ball of flames, and Mike waved it around proudly next to the old dry wood bridge. Realizing the risk, I told him to throw the dang thing in the river and put it out, which thankfully he did. After making sure there weren't any rogue embers that could ignite the bridge, Brandon suggested that we get back in the car and pull it onto the bridge. He explained that the legend was that if you parked your car in the middle of the bridge, put it in neutral, and killed the engine, the spirit of the dead farmer would push the vehicle forward to get it off the bridge. Naturally, we had to try this. We piled back in and did exactly as he said. We parked halfway across the rickety old bridge and killed the engine. We sat in pitch black, saying nothing, waiting for something, anything, to happen. The only sounds were the creaking of the bridge, the river flowing beneath us, and footsteps? Suddenly, the back driver's side door opens, and a woman abruptly enters the back seat, cramming in next to my two friends back there. She looked to be in her late 20s or early 30s, long straight black hair, slim, and wearing a plaid shirt and blue jeans. It's been a while, but this is essentially how I remember the conversation going. "I saw your fire signal for me," she said. Wait, what?" I replied, totally freaked out and at a complete loss for words. "I'm so glad you came. My boyfriend's car broke down that way. I need a ride back." My brain was doing its best to compute the situation. "I'm sorry, but who are you?" I asked. "What are you doing out here?" "I told you," she responded curtly. "My boyfriend's car broke down over there. Can you please just give me a ride so I don't have to walk all the way back?" She was pointing ahead, towards a narrow road that forked off to the right on the other side of the bridge. My friend Mike, the scarecrow burner and ever the gentleman, added, "I mean, if you need a place to stay, you're more than welcome to come crash at my place. I've got plenty to drink," and I interrupted him. "No, lady, listen, I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. You just got in my car, and this is all really weird. You could be an axe murderer for all I know, and I'm sorry, you have to get out." She glared at me in the rearview mirror. If looks could kill, I would have been done for. "But you signaled for me," she responded in an irritated tone. We weren't signaling for you! Get out! She let out an angry sigh and got out, walking back in the direction from which she came and disappearing into the night. I started the engine right up and looked at my friends. They all had looks of disbelief on their faces. Without saying a word, I put the car in drive and slowly rolled forward and off the bridge. We needed to turn around and go back across the bridge to get back to where we had come from, and the only way to do that was to pull onto the side road that the woman said her boyfriend's car had broken down on and then reverse. As I pulled onto the side road, my headlights illuminated the 3 posted signs that I hadn't been able to see from the bridge. No trespassing, private property, and do not enter. Looking up the road, there was no sign of the woman. Wherever she went, it didn't appear she went that way. I didn't want to stick around though, so I backed up and crossed the bridge again, and from there began the journey home. We didn't have much to say on the ride home. I think we were all equally stunned, except for Mike, who asked if he knew anyone who would be awake at this hour that he could score some weed from. I visited White's Bridge a couple of times after that, but nothing of note happened in my subsequent visits. Sadly, some delinquents burned down the old White's Bridge some years ago. It was rebuilt, but from what I hear, it's just not the same as the original. I don't have any plans to go and check it out. So, to the strange lady who entered my car out in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m., let's not meet.
As the title states, I just found out that this sub was a thing. Apologies if the naming convention of the title is off or something doesn't meet the code of the sub. Let me share the story about the time my mother and I discovered a homeless man living in our cottage basement. This was in February of this year, 2021. We have a cottage about 45 minutes away from my parents' main home. It's not far from Huntsville, Muskoka, Ontario, if anyone wants a visual. Thing is, it's completely unfinished. The basement has no proper flooring and has a slight water leak right now. So, there are plenty of fans and a dehumidifier running. As a result, one of us needs to check on the place at least once every 2 to 3 weeks to empty the dehumidifier in the basement and make sure everything is okay. To describe the house layout a bit, the entrance to the basement is directly in front of the main entrance. It's a long, skinny staircase down with a low roof, so you need to crouch on the way down. There is one crappy light bulb in the ceiling, so it's always super dark down there. There's one big room, then 2 hallways branching off. One hall leads to a bedroom, and the other leads to not only a second bedroom, but also a washroom. All of which are completely unfinished and without lighting. The second hallway is much longer, and the rooms are just way off in the back corner of the basement and are completely dark. In other words, it's creepy looking. Okay, so let's get to the good part, the day it all went down. My mom and I are heading up there to empty the dehumidifier, have some lunch, and clean out some junk. We were slowly gutting the place. It had been nearly 3 weeks since we checked up on the place by this point. We stopped at a McDonald's beforehand, and each got a filet-o-fish combo. First time trying one, and it was actually pretty tasty. We got into the place and put our food on the table. Then turn on the heat. First thing we do is run downstairs to turn the water on and to check the dehumidifier. After turning on the water, we head over to the dehumidifier and notice that there is hardly any water in it. It looks like it's only been running for a couple of days. There is still the regular amount of moisture on the ground, but it was strangely empty. My mom and I head upstairs and she grabs her phone to text my dad and ask if he had stopped by to empty the dehumidifier recently. He said he hadn't. We were both puzzled as to why it looked so empty, but never considered there was a third person in the house with us. After heating up our food, we both sit down at the table and turn on the TV. About 5 minutes into our meal, we hear a massive bang downstairs, almost as if someone stubbed their toe really bad on a cupboard or something like that. We instantly jump and look at one another with a freaked out look on our faces. The TV is still playing rather quietly. Then we hear the worst thing. We hear a small grunt downstairs. It was unmistakable, a human vocal sound. My mom whispered to me, "What's that, a person?" And I smirk and nod my head yes, although it was freaky at the moment. I wasn't really taking it very seriously for some reason. Looking back, this was pretty serious, and this person could have been very dangerous. I just told her, "Grab your jacket and let's head out to the car and call the police." We gather our stuff, and I grab a kitchen knife on the way. If you recall, the entrance to the basement is directly across from the main entrance to the house. So, I had to make this peek around the corner and was fully expecting to see a person on the dark staircase, but luckily, it was just a series of stairs down into the dark abyss. Once we're out front, we jump into my car and she calls the cops immediately. Within 3 minutes, 4 cruisers show up and 5 cops get out. We told them what had happened, and they headed down the driveway. They were in the house for probably 10 minutes before the door opened. A couple of cops walk out, and boom. The third cop brought out a short, chubby guy with long black hair and pop bottle glasses. They brought him out handcuffed onto the front steps, and another cop had a bag that looked like his belongings. We were in our car, which was up the street a bit and facing away from the entrance of the cottage, but my mom turned away as soon as he was brought up the driveway. She didn't want to get a good look at him, as the whole situation was pretty unsettling for her. They loaded him in the back of one of the cruisers and took him away. One cop came over and spoke with my mom for a bit about the situation. Ultimately, my parents had decided to not press charges against the guy when it was all said and done. He was just sleeping on the cold cement ground with a small roll-up mattress, even though there was a proper bed upstairs. This made us think that he'd been down that back hallway in the unfinished bedrooms for a while. We probably walked downstairs to empty the dehumidifier and turn on and off the hot water a number of times, and he was like 15 feet away in one of the bedrooms. He probably wasn't a bad person, and I'm personally at least a bit thankful he decided to empty the dehumidifier. Hopefully, he lived in there for most of the colder months this past winter. We're just lucky it didn't turn into one of those crazy squatter situations.
The following story is told in the point of view of a woman. It all started with a normal day at work. I worked at a small grocery store at the time, and my duties consisted of gathering shopping carts in the parking lot and bagging groceries, normal minimum wage stuff. It was rainy that morning, and of course, I was assigned to carts all day. About 2 hours into my shift, I saw a man rushing to get his groceries into the car as it was pouring out. I ran over to him and started helping him with his bags. "It's pouring," I said. "Mind if I help you get out of the rain?" "Yes, thank you so much." As he was closing his trunk, he looked at me with a very surprised look on his face. He lowered his eyebrows, looked me up and down, and smirked. "Are you a new hire?" "No, I've been here for a couple of months." "Oh, you are very pretty," he said in a weirdly sensual tone. "Thank you. Have a good day." I shut it down, as I was not interested. As I was walking back to the store to hide until he left, I could feel him watching me while I walked away. Nevertheless, I continued to work, not really thinking about it. After my lunch, I was at the register bagging groceries, and I noticed the same man from earlier walk in. I pretended I didn't see him and just kept on bagging. He came up to the register and got a single chocolate bar. I didn't give him a bag. He stands towering over me and says, "Aren't you going to bag my item?" "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you wanted a bag for one thing." I put his chocolate bar in a bag and told him to have a good day. "When are you off work, sweetheart?" I'm not comfortable giving that information out." He returned with, "That's okay. You've been here, what, 5 hours? You probably get off around 6 or 7, right?" He smiled, winked at me, and walked away. Disgusted, I went to my manager and told her what happened. She told me not to work the lot anymore and to ask someone to walk me to my car. So by the end of my shift, I had a male coworker walk me to my truck, and we scanned the parking lot looking for this man's car. We didn't see him, so my coworker went back inside and I started my truck. I called my mom to tell her about what happened, and once she answered, I left the parking lot. Literally, the second I turned onto the road, I saw his car pull onto the road behind me. I told my mom I thought he was going to follow me, and she just told me to drive around a bit to try and lose him. I drove around for about 20 minutes, just going in circles around my town. I hit a red light, and he pulled up next to me and started yelling something to me out his open window. I, of course, pretended he wasn't there, but I could still hear what he was saying. "You would bear some good kids for me. You'd make a great slave for me, little lady." He then started being very explicit about what he was going to do to me if he caught me. I told my mom I was going to call 911, and if I wasn't home in an hour, to call the police. While I was trying to dial 911, the man speeds ahead of my truck and starts brake checking me. Frantic, I wait for the closest intersection and turn up the block. My phone fell under my seat while I was turning, so I decided to go to the nearest open establishment, run in and hide, and have someone else call 911. The closest open business I could find was a convenience store at a gas station. I pull in, park, and run for my life into the store. I tell the clerk what's happening, and she takes me to the break room and locks me in there. While processing that I might have survived this ordeal, I hear the doors of the storefront start violently rattling, and before I knew it, the clerk was locking herself in the break room too. She was on the phone with the police, and they were on their way. We were silent. Cowering in a dark room, I found myself feeling guilty for wrapping another woman into our worst fear. My thoughts were racing through what I said to him. Did I lead him on? No, I just told him to have a good day. Has he been following me for longer than tonight? How did he know what car I drove? Are the police going to get here in time? Are we going to die? Finally, the small room is illuminated with red and blue lights from the crack under the door. We hear a voice over the intercom telling us it's safe to come out. Shaking, the clerk takes out her keys and opens the door. We walk out and give our statements. After the police leave, I turn to my unexpected savior and profusely thank her. We cry, hug, and then she walks me to my car. The next night, I went back and brought her some food and an Amazon gift card. I have been in a near-fatal car accident 10 feet away from a mountain lion in the wild, and I'm a survivor of a sexual assault. I can tell you, reader, with total honesty, I thought that was the end of my line. Thank you for reading. Stay aware, be cautious, and stay safe. What's up, everybody? This is the Lone Wolf here. Thank you so much for listening to the video. I hope you guys enjoyed these stories. I just want to give a big thank you to the Redditors who allowed me to read their stories in this video. There will be links to each individual Reddit post in the description below for those of you who want to read them. I also want to give a massive thank you to PA Nightmares for teaming up with me in this video. He is an amazing horror narrator, and I highly recommend you check out his channel. There will be a link to his channel in the description below, as well as an icon that will appear at the end of this closing. Please do check him out and show him some support. I hope you guys have a great time in his nightmare realm. Anyways, if you're new to my channel, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing if you enjoyed my narrations. Turn on the bell for notifications and join the Lone Wolf Pack. If you guys want to send me a message or maybe a personal scary story that you would like me to read, there will be links to my email and my Twitter account in the description below. There will also be links in the description for the music artists that I used in this video, as well as the individual tracks that I used in case you're interested in the music. And last but not least, if any of you guys have any ideas or tips for me to make my channel even better, please leave me a comment or send me a personal message. Until next time, stay spooky. And remember, The hunt begins when the moon is full. Sweet dreams.